All right, welcome. Kevin Yates Live, back at you again from this crazy weather, Lathrop, California. Today's topic is how to break free from your six selves that are holding you back. And this has nothing to do with personality disorders and split personalities and all that kind of stuff. That has nothing to do with that. It has to do with breaking free from the parts of ourselves that really tend to hold us back. Because a lot of times we think that it's our circumstances, or that we have bad luck, or that things are beyond our control, and those are the reasons why we're not being, doing, and having what we want. So when I talk about the six selves, I'm going to be talking about self-doubt. I'm going to be talking about self-worth, self-confidence, self-esteem, self-judgment, and self-criticism. So those are the things that tend to hold us back. So I'm going to be talking about how to overcome those, how to break free from those, so that you can disempower those things from holding you back. And they are very, very powerful. But I'm going to share with you some helpful strategies to break free from them finally, once and for all, so you can achieve what you want. So this is kind of crazy. My allergies are going a little bit nuts here. Every time we get this this wind blowing, and then the rain, and then the first couple days when there's sun, but the wind keeps going, I just get these allergies. So I apologize if I'm kind of getting a little bit of these symptoms and things going on. But as they say, the show must go on, and that is what we will do. Yes. All right, so before I get started, I've got to give my warning. Boom, warning right there. See the big warning label coming across the screen? Just imagine that it's there. All right, but the warning is for the languishing lurkers behind the keyboards and the sensitive society members who, if you're one of those who are sensitive to a little bit of foul language. Hey, I get excited sometimes, and an occasional F-bomb, S-bomb, or any other kind of bombs and truth bombs may be dropped. So, if you're a little bit sensitive to that stuff, there's no need to, get all crazy about it and throw a fit and complain and all this stuff. Just go ahead and politely turn the channel now. I'm just trying to be upfront. I don't say any of this to be rude or mean or arrogant or come from a place of judgment. I make none. I just want to be honest and transparent about what you're in for, all right? Also, if you are somebody who is not engaged in the process of your own success, what I mean by that is that if you're not prepared to do a bit of work, to roll up your sleeves and to get to work and actually have to do some things in order to achieve whatever you want to do, or whoever you want to be as you go through life, or the life that you want to live, if you're not willing to roll up the sleeves and get a little dirty and do some work, and you'd rather just sit back and watch, The Secret 1,000 times and try to magically manifest miracles out of thin air and hope that, your dreams fall in your lap majestically somehow, hey, that's cool. I'm not here to judge you. I don't think it's good, bad, right, wrong, or anything. It's just not what you're going to get from me. That's nothing, that you're going to get from this show. So again, if that's you, you'll want to tune out now, and that's totally cool. That's totally cool. But, you'll definitely want to find something that is more aligned with what you're looking for. All right? So with that being said, if you are here, then welcome to the show. Today's topic, again, if you're just tuning in, it's how to break free from your six selves that are holding you back. Yes, and this is not a movie with Bruce Willis. And no, we are not going to be seeing dead people. At least I'm not seeing them. Anyway, so that's what the show's about. I'm going to share just some simple strategies to help you break free from things like self-doubt, self-criticism, self-judgment, self-worth, self-esteem, and self-confidence issues. Those are the ones that tend to hold us back the most. So, before I get started, let's go into today's truth bomb. That's where yeah, I don't have the effects yet. Truth bomb today. Look, I'm going to make this straightforward. What this is look, you cannot wait for anybody to choose you before you do what you are meant to do here. What I mean is that if you're like sitting around waiting, you're waiting for the right opportunity to come your way. If you're waiting for somebody to choose you to do what it is that you want to do, if you're waiting for somebody to give you permission, or if you're waiting for other people's approval, stop waiting around. Don't wait. That's a mindset that takes your power away from you. It's a victim mentality, and it will only keep you stuck because you're never, ever, ever, you're never going to get rescued or saved. You're never going to get like everybody's approval. You know, people, there's a lot of people that are just honestly going to shit all over your dreams. They're going to tell you that what you want to do isn't possible for you. They're going to tell you all the reasons why you can't do it because they're not living their dreams. They're not doing the thing that they most want to do. And as the saying goes, misery loves company. Some people do it intentionally, and other people, they do it unintentionally. But either way, don't wait around to be chosen. Don't wait around before you decide to take the steps to live the dream that you have. Whatever it is that's within you, right in here, whatever it is that's calling you, you know what that is. Stop waiting around. Do not wait to be chosen. You need to choose yourself. So get up, get out there, dust yourself off, get over like anything that's holding you back here. Whatever you got to do to deal with it. And today I'm going to show you how to deal with it because those 6 selves, I can guarantee that at least one of them is somewhere in there. If you are waiting around and you're afraid to make that step and you're waiting for approval or permission before you are going to go and do what it is that you feel you were put on this earth to do, I'm telling you right now, don't wait around. Choose yourself. That is today's hashtag truth bomb. Choose yourself. Don't wait around to be chosen. All right. So like I said, today's topic is how to break free from the 6 selves, your 6 selves that are holding you back. And we're going to get right into that. So I'm going to lead this off, as I typically do. I like to share a story. And I'm going to share a little bit of a story about, and I'll explain kind of how this all ties in. But anyway, this was like years ago, right? Years and years ago. And, if you have been watching this show, this is episode 9 today. So if you've been watching the other episodes, you've probably heard me share, some of my story where, I was at a point in my life, when I was 36 years old. I mean, that's a time where most people are like, they're doing what they're going to do for the rest of their lives. They've got it all figured out, right? They're doing their thing. But me, I didn't have anything figured out. I was depressed. I suffered almost every single day from really bad depression. I was diagnosed in 2002 with generalized anxiety disorder. I had some like serious anxiety issues. I felt basically hopeless. I was overweight. I lived with chronic pain. I had some pretty, serious health issues going on. My career wasn't where I wanted it to be. I was just desperately unhappy, unfulfilled, and in the best way that I could describe like how life was for me at that time, it was an uphill battle. It was like every single day was a freaking battle. I had to drag myself out of bed and I would just dread the day ahead because it was like, it took every ounce of willpower that I had just to survive my day. And that's what I felt like. I kind of felt like this guy going out, dragging like my armor and my shield, and my sword, and having to go out and just fend off everybody and just to survive my days. That's where I was then. Today, things are a lot different. It seems like all this stuff happened to a different person now that I look back on it. But, there was a lot of things that were going on and a lot that happened going into this transition. Now, flashback to this time where, my 6 selves were, they were just owning me. They owned and controlled every part of my life. And, I was in a relationship years ago with this woman who, when the relationship ended, she had told me, she said, Kevin, the problem with you is that, you're never going to be happy. She's like, you're never, ever going to be happy. You'll never find the happiness that you deserve. And, it was kind of weird because you would just think that, well, that's just her opinion. That's just what somebody says. But back then, because, my self-confidence and self-esteem was just into the shitter at that time. I mean, it was so damn low. And, I took a lot of things to heart, especially, when people said things to me. I just blindly adopted things as true. And so I took what this person told me, that I'll never, ever find the happiness that I deserve, and I'll never be happy. And I took that literally. Like, I really took that to heart, and I believed it. And so what happened was, it was the weirdest thing, because I kept running into, like, all the time, situations and circumstances and even people who were unhappy, situations in life that made me unhappy and miserable, and, continued to feed my depression and my anxieties and my self-doubt and my confidence and esteem issues and all that stuff. And, what I didn't realize at the time was that it was the inner process that goes. Now, I talk a lot about how our brain works, because, when you understand, and I don't get all like scientific into it and everything. I'm not going to go through the anatomy and all this crazy scientific shit. But when you have a basic understanding of how the whole process of the brain works, then you can start to develop more awareness and start to kind of see the patterns that you go through, and you start to understand how you're creating things in your life. You can start to understand and see how you attract certain people and circumstances and things in your life, and what you're attracted to as well. And it's crazy. But at the time, I didn't realize, like, this is how the brain works, because what happened was that I gave that message that this person told me so much importance. And I've talked about this before when I talked about how the brain develops habits, how it wires in habits, so that, basically we do things unconsciously. We do things without our awareness. I mean, imagine if every time you went to open a door, you had to stop and you had to look at the door and you had to think about that. Okay, do I push this? Do I pull it? Do I lift it? And what's with this little round thing? What do I do with that? Is it a button? Do I push it? Right? Imagine you had to figure out how to open a door and go through that whole process every time. So what happens is there's an area of the brain that wires in habits so that we can just do things unconsciously, and it's designed to make certain things easier for us. Well, unfortunately, what got stuck in that part of the brain that kind of wired this so-called habit, it was the habit of unhappiness for me. And because of what this person said, that part of my brain gave like this signal. It was like this detector that was looking out for unhappiness. And because I took it so much to heart and believed it with everything I had, I gave it all my focus. I gave it like all this importance. So when you do that, your brain basically says, well, I'm getting this message, and okay, so I'm seeing this theme of unhappiness. Well, this must be really important. So guess what? We're going to be on the lookout for unhappiness, right? So every time, I'm going about my day and doing my things, my brain, I'm doing what I'm doing, right? But my brain subconsciously is on the lookout for situations and people that create unhappiness. And no surprise, that's exactly what I found all the time in my life. But at the time, I didn't realize that. What I thought was that there were, it was everybody else's fault. I thought that I was a victim of my own circumstances. I thought I had bad luck. I thought that bad shit just happened to me. Poor Kevin Yates. I'm never going to be, happy like I want, because all this crap in life, I got bad luck and all these things just seem to happen to me and I can't get a break. And that's what I thought. But, it took me a lot of years later and a lot of studying and a lot of experiences and everything to understand what was going on and how it's an internal process that happens. So that relates a lot to, why I'm sharing the story is because that was how, my six selves, and that was just one, instance of my six selves holding me back. And, when you don't realize that, it's like I said, you go through life just, unconsciously, you're just reacting to everything and everything seems to happen to you. It seems like it's all happening outside of you and that you have no control over it. And what that does is when we feel like we have no control, it takes away any power that we have to do anything about it, because we lose our freedom. We lose any kind of choice that we might have because we don't see it. We don't see that we have any of that. So what I'm going to talk to you about today about how to break free from your six selves, those are self-doubt, those are self-judgment, self-criticism, self-worth, self-confidence, and self-esteem. So if you're suffering from any one of those issues, or maybe more, I suffer from all of them at the same time. But, if you're dealing and struggling with any one of those, and I don't have to tell you just how serious it can be and how much it can hold you back in life. So, right now, if any of that kind of relates to you, or if you can think of a time in your life, maybe it's now, maybe it was a previous time where one of those selves was holding you back, or if you can relate to something now, if you could think of something now in any area of your life where one of those selves is holding you back from being and doing and having what you want, then do me a favor, hit like right now, share this, click one of the hearts, or leave a comment. Let me know what it is. But definitely share this out right now, because, if you're going through this, and if you're watching this, you've got to be going through something right now. Then I can guarantee there's somebody else out there who's dealing with it as well. They're going through their own struggles. And the way that, we can help get this message out, I can't do it all alone, right? I can always use help. So, we can work together on doing that. So share this out with anybody you know of who can benefit from this, all right? So let's get right into the topic. So what we're talking about, how to break free from your six selves that are holding you back from being, doing, and having what you want in your life. So number one, how do we break free? Okay. When we're caught, we're tangled in the web of ourselves. We are caught. Let me talk real quick and explain what the selves are, just in case. Self-doubt. Okay. Self-doubt, that's just when we're filled with uncertainty. It could be, having fear around a certain area of your life, where you want to do something, but you worry about, what if I fail? I used to have what I called the Tony Robbins syndrome, and I talked about this in the last episode, so I won't go on into it again. But briefly, for me, I feared failure, but I feared success, which honestly, if you look at fear of success, it really is fear of failure. It's just a different way of looking at it. But for me, I worried about, because I wanted to do like motivational speaking and all this. And when I first started wanting to do that, the one person who I thought was the best example of the most successful motivational speaker, at least one of them, was Tony Robbins. And I'd read books of his and listened to his audio programs, and all like, I knew a lot about like Tony Robbins' stuff. But for me, I really feared that, man, what if somebody hired me and paid me to go speak and I'm not as good as Tony Robbins? And I had all these ways that I was comparing myself to Tony Robbins, and all it did was it doused the flame of excitement I had. It put it right out. My enthusiasm dropped, and I started getting depressed because I thought of all the ways that I wasn't like Tony Robbins. And so I figured, well, if I got booked to speak and I'm not like Tony Robbins, shit, they're not going to want to pay me. I'm going to look stupid, or I'm not going to be able to measure up to meet the expectations that people are going to have of me. Oh my God, I can't do this. So I was filled with self-doubt. I lived in fear. So that's self-doubt, when you're filled with uncertainty, fear, right? Fear of success, fear of failure. That's self-doubt. The other one is self-criticism. So self-criticism, it's all those things that you don't like, you can't stand about yourself, you wish you didn't have them, or any of those complaints that you constantly, that the things that you think are wrong with you, that's self-criticism. It could be, somebody who's trying to lose weight. I used to go through that, looking in my mirror and thinking, damn, I hate my stomach. God damn, I hate my loose, flabby stomach. I just hated that, and despised how I looked. That was my self-criticism. There's self-judgment. So with self-judgment, that's the labels that we place on ourselves based on, a lot of times it's based on the criticisms that we have, but it's really the labels that we place on ourselves, when we think that we're bad, or that we feel something's wrong with us, or we're lazy, we're unmotivated, we're unlovable, unattractive, right? Things like that. So that's self-judgment. We've got self-esteem, which is basically, self-esteem is what you believe about yourself as a person, right? Your self-esteem, or how you feel about yourself as a person, okay? There is self-confidence, which is more what you believe about your abilities, what you believe is possible for you, what you believe you can or cannot achieve, okay? Self-confidence. And then there's self-worth, which is, what you believe you deserve, and sometimes what you believe you don't deserve, okay? So those are the 6 selves that tend to hold us back. And a lot of times there's more than one going on. Sometimes, they're all kind of linked up, so I'm gonna go through that a bit, but just so you're familiar with what we're talking about, that's it. So if you can think of, which one of those selves is your biggest, or are you struggling with the most right now in your life? Which one is it? Go ahead and comment below and let me know what that is. And before my voice runs out here, pardon the interruption. That drink break was brought to you by Diet Coke. No, that's not whiskey. It's not Jack and Coke. Although for this show I might need it, but I don't. All right. So anyway, let's get right into the topic. Now that we know what we're dealing with, let's talk about the number one strategy, how to break free from your 6 selves. So whichever one you're struggling with, or even if it's more than one, how do we break free from it? What do we do about it? Now, there's a lot of self-help books and all that that'll talk about, creating positive affirmations and, vision boards and reciting mantras and, thinking positive and all that crap, and it's good, it's cool and everything. I did it, I did it back in the day, and I tried a lot of things, and, honestly, I won't crap all over it and everything, but I don't think that, that stuff alone isn't going to be enough, right? We need to do more. And what I've found is it's a lot of the things are just, it's not really about like having to do a lot of things, right? It's just some simple steps that we could take. So number one thing is awareness. Okay. And I mean, awareness is the foundation of where this all starts. You will not get beyond and break free from the things that are holding you back. Your 6 selves, any one of them that are holding you back, you're not going to break free from it without self-awareness. Self-awareness is the key to it all, because I've said this before, that the more awareness you have, the more choice you have. Awareness creates choice, and choice creates freedom, because the more choice we have, the more freedom we have, and the more freedom we have, the more happiness we experience. Okay? So awareness leads to happiness. It leads to the choice and the freedom and the happiness. The less awareness we have, and this is what happens a lot of times when we're not aware of how ourselves are holding us back. We're just not aware of what's really going on. And so things just seem like they happen to us. And right there, that's a lack of awareness. That's what causes that. A lack of awareness leads to less choice. When we don't have awareness, we really don't have a choice. And when we don't have a choice, we can't choose how we respond. We don't have freedom. We start to encounter more restriction, more confinement. And the more restricted and confined we are, the more unhappy we become. All right. So that's the big thing, is awareness. So what do we need to become aware of? It's a word that a lot of like experts out there and the personal growth leaders and self-help, gurus and all them out there will talk about it. But I think there's a lack of understanding about what awareness really is. So when I talk about awareness, and I'm not going to come from a, mystical, philosophical kind of, way, this is like, this show is 100% airy fairy pixel dust free, meaning that I'm not going to come at you and try to give you like ideas and philosophies that you can't do anything with. They sound great and they may make you feel good, but then you come away going, well, how do I use that? So instead, I'm going to give you a simple, practical, and a usable way to apply what I'm talking about. So when it comes to awareness, what I'm talking about is we're trying to become aware of a few things, of our thoughts, right? What are the thoughts that go through your head that tend to create negative types of feelings in you? So thoughts, feelings, right? Because, when we think certain thoughts and it creates certain feelings, okay? And then also your language. Now, when I talk about language, this ties into something I talked about in previous episodes called something I call your self-concept. So when I talked about your self-concept, that's your overall idea of who you are, who you think you are, how you fit into the world and all that stuff. But it consists of two things. It consists of your self-talk. So that's part of the language that I'm talking about, is how you talk to yourself, how you talk about yourself, okay? And then there's the other thing, is your self-image, and that is how you see yourself, okay? So when I talk about like your language, it could be verbal or it could be visual. Your language sometimes might be an image. For example, I've known a lot of clients who I've trained. When I used to be a personal trainer, and I did this for almost 17 years, and there were a lot of clients who had issues with self-image, body image issues. They kept seeing themselves as being overweight, being fat, what they thought of as fat, as being unattractive. There was a lot of this, and they had images that were just burned in their brain, and they would see that stuff all the time. So, when you're constantly feeding yourself these images, or you're constantly speaking to yourself or about yourself in ways that are really negative, sometimes it's ways where it could be really, really nasty. I know personally, the language in my head when I looked at myself in the mirror, man, there was some language like I wouldn't talk to, I wouldn't talk to a lot of people the way that I was talking to myself. I would call myself names. I would curse myself out, like in my head, cursing myself out because of the way I looked. I had this self-hatred that was going on. It was just really, really bad. But it's really, awareness is being aware of these things. Your language, right? Your feelings and your thoughts. So those are the things. When you become aware of those thoughts that are going through your head, of the image that you hold or the language that you're speaking, and aware of your feelings, what starts to happen is that you can start to recognize kind of like recurring themes or patterns, right? So, when you start to like recognize certain patterns that emerge, thoughts that recur on a consistent basis. It could be like negative type feelings, it could be like things where you get really, really anxious, caught up in anxiety, or it could be the opposite where, you're in depression a lot. And, the thing is, when we don't have awareness, a lot of times we go through life and don't even know what's causing it. How many times have you gone through a day where everything was okay, and then for some unknown reason, you just got really, really angry, pissed off, and you didn't know why? Or maybe you got really sad and depressed, or maybe you just got really, really happy about something. You were in a great mood, but you didn't really know why. It just kind of happened. And it could be like hours or most of the day that goes by. You might be at the end of the day going, before you realize, man, I'm really depressed right now, or I'm really, really happy. I'm in a great mood. But you really don't know why, like what caused it. So if you ever had that, like, give me a like right now or just comment. Let me know if you can resonate, if you ever had a day like that. But so that's the kind of things that happen when we're just going through our lives unconsciously, unaware. So, good feelings can happen and that's wonderful. But then how do we get ourselves back there, right? How did we create the good feeling? Because as much as we might not be aware that we're doing it, or we might think that it's, well, this happened to me, something good happened to me, or, someone gave me a compliment and told me I really looked nice in that dress I was wearing, or, whatever it might be. We tend to give credit to the things outside of us for our feelings. But it's nothing outside of us that causes it. It's our interpretation of what's going on outside of us that creates it all. Because our brain is using all of our senses, smell and sight and taste and touch and hearing. And that's giving us, it's basically relaying to our brain what's going on in the environment. And that changes a feeling in our body, or it creates the feeling in our body about something based on what our brain interprets it as meaning, right? So we sense things, our brain goes, okay, this is what I'm getting, and it means this. And it means this because of, our brain goes into what we believe to be true, right? So it's basing it off beliefs we have. It bases it off experiences that we've had in the past. And then it comes up with a definition. So I'm sensing this and it means this. And now your brain starts to regulate hormones and everything in your body to change your feeling. Right? So that's where our feelings really come from. Now, before I get all geeky and into the science of that, I don't want to geek out on that, but I think it's important to understand that it's not your external environment. It's not the things that are going on outside of you that are creating what's happening, how you're feeling, good feelings, bad feelings, whatever it is, negative emotional states. You're doing it all, but you're most of the time doing it by habit, doing it without being aware. So the first step is awareness. Be aware of your language. Be aware of your thoughts. Be aware of the feelings. And from that, we can start to recognize patterns. Now, once we have that awareness, we can move into step 2. Now, before we get into that, real quick, if you got something from this, if you resonated with any of that, or if you start to make some connections, something may a flash, like an aha, or something made sense to you about what I just said about awareness, do me a favor, click the like or click the heart and share this video, okay? Share this video right now. I'd love to see some shares here because, like I said, if you're relating to this and this is starting to help you figure some things out, or some things are starting to make sense, then guess what? There's other people out there who need this as well because they're going through struggles that they can't make sense out of. So do me a favor, and share this video. Go ahead and click the share button on this, all right? So that brings us now to step number 2, and that is that once we have some awareness, we start becoming aware of the language that we have, the images we're holding, our feelings, our thoughts. We start to recognize some patterns. Now, what can we do with this awareness? That leads to step 2, where we look at the recipe, okay? And I've talked about like the recipe before in a different video, but I'll go through it briefly again because it's very important and it's very powerful. We identify the recipe, but we have to have awareness in order to be able to get into the recipe. Because now what we do with the recipe here is we're looking for 3 things. We're looking first for the trigger. What sets it all off? What starts the whole kind of pattern that you've identified from the awareness? So, for example, most recently, I had this whole silly nutrition thing where I was going through months and months where I couldn't control my cravings for junk food, and I was just pigging out on the stuff like constantly, almost every day. I couldn't control how much I ate. I couldn't control like the cravings I had. I was giving in all the time, and it was just nuts. Now, I knew I needed to eat healthy. I knew things like, I need to cut the sugar out. I need to, eat healthier, get more fruits and vegetables. Like, I knew all that. But that didn't change the fact that I wasn't doing it. And so what I had to become aware of was really what the issue was. So I needed step one in there, my language and, my thoughts and all of that stuff. And once I became aware of things, then I started to look at the recipe, right? So as I became aware, what I figured out was that my nutrition struggles weren't related to nutrition. They were actually related to anxiety that I was getting because of all the pressure I was putting on myself. And I was doing it a lot. And it affected so many things that it created a recipe. So I looked at the whole detail of it and I knew, okay, well, when this starts, my nutrition problems, it begins with me placing a lot of pressure on myself to be like this perfect role model of health and fitness. Because at the time I was a personal trainer, and I had this whole idea of what I needed to look like and how I needed to to be, what foods I could and couldn't eat, and I was trying so hard to be perfect. I did the same thing as a father with my daughters, trying to be the perfect parent all the time, to my wife, trying to be the perfect husband, all these different areas where I was striving so hard for perfection. I put all this pressure on myself. And what that did was it created anxiety, and that affected my sleep. That affected my energy. That affected my mood. And then ultimately that would affect my cravings for certain foods, right? Because it created hormonal responses in my body that I couldn't control. But that was my recipe. So you can kind of see from that example that when you have awareness and you start to recognize patterns that are going on, now you can kind of figure out what's the recipe going on. If this is the pattern that's happening with me, what is it that triggers it? What happens, like what's the event that happens from it? So kind of what's the chain reaction in there? It's like baking a cake, why I call it a recipe, because when you bake a cake, you have to have the right ingredients, okay? So you got all the ingredients there, but then you got to put the ingredients in a specific order, right? You got to put this in for like the flour, and then you got to put the eggs, and then, the vanilla or whatever you're putting in there. But there's a certain sequence, right? And if you get it all wrong, then the cake turns out like shit. It's not what you want, right? So there's a certain sequence in there, and that's the recipe. So it's really taking that and applying that to what's going on with the part of you, the selves or the self that's holding you back the most right now, and looking at what triggers it. What triggers that whole response? So if I'm filled with self-doubt, what is the trigger? What happens that sets that in motion, right? So case in point, for example, my Tony Robbins experience, my Tony Robbins syndrome, right? What started that whole self-doubt out? Well, that was me really getting my hopes up to be a motivational speaker. And then, but that would set the whole thing in motion. So then what was the chain reaction of that? Like the middle. Well, so I think of being a motivational speaker. That was my trigger, because then what would happen is that I would start comparing myself to Tony Robbins, and I would start thinking of all the ways I wasn't like him. And then that would start to make me feel bad. And then I would start to fear getting hired as a speaker, because I think that I'm not like him, so I will not be able to meet the expectations that the person who hires me or the audience members will have of me. And then, oh my God, I'm not going to be good enough. And then I'm going to fail, and I'm look stupid, and I'll bomb, and I'll be a failure. And therefore, I can't be a motivational speaker. Boom, 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 boom. Chain reaction right there, right? And so that's the event, the chain reaction. And then finally is the post event, like the outcome of it all. For me, it was, I go back to just doing fitness and personal training, because that was my career that I spent years doing, and I was very comfortable with it, but it wasn't the thing that I really aspired to do. It wasn't my ultimate dream. But I kind of defaulted back because that's where I felt comfortable, and I didn't feel threatened there. I didn't feel like I had any thing to worry about. I felt very secure and very safe there. But because I felt, safe and secure there, that actually held me back from going after my dream, right? So what is that for you, though? So if you look at that whole thing that I talked about, right, what is the recipe? What is the trigger that sets the self, the part of the any one of the 6 selves that is holding you back? What's the trigger that sets that whole thing in motion? Then what's the recipe, the chain reaction that happens, and what is the outcome, the post-event that thing that happens? All right. So I've said a lot so far. We got two of the things down that I want to discuss, and there's going to be one more. But before I do, I would like you very much, if you are this far into this, then you've got to be getting something good. You've got to be hearing some things, or some of the, these things, or maybe all of it is connecting with you. It's resonating with you. You're finding yourself going, yes, 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 I get that. Do me a favor. Give me some of the likes, some of the loves right now, and share this video. I know I say that on and on, but it's super important, right? The only way that I can really get this message out to help inspire and empower other people to overcome their struggles is with your help. It all starts with you, right? So do me a favor and click the share button right now. I want to get some shares going on. Even if you end up watching this video after it airs, you can still comment, you can still share. So please do so. All right. So step number 3 coming up. All right. Got to replenish the old voice because I will talk myself out. Number 3 is now based on all of this. And now this goes in a sequence, right? Because we can't just skip steps in here because it won't work right. So if you just go, fuck the awareness, I'm just going to go at step number 2 and look at the whole recipe because that sounds kind of cool, it's not going to work right for you. You're not going to get as much out of this and as you could get. So it really won't work. It's a process, right? Like a 3-step kind of process. It begins with step 1, awareness, goes into step 2 is identifying the recipe, and then step 3, we look at how is it holding you back now. So from a recipe we get this outcome. This is what's happening to me. So I'm filled with self-doubt now, and because I feel like I'm not as good as Tony Robbins, and I'm never going to be a motivational speaker, and it fills me with self-doubt. And so how does it hold me back? Well, for me in that example, I never did anything to get myself out to go speak. I feared speaking. I went back into just being the fitness guy that I didn't want to really be anymore. And so, that's what it held me back from doing, right? Realizing one of my dreams to be a speaker and to inspire millions of people worldwide. And that's what it held me back. So what is your self holding you back from, right? What is that when you identify the recipe and you've got the outcome, what's it holding you back from now? Now, I've asked questions like this before to people, about what the things holding them back are. And, a lot of times they come back into, like fitness things. So, and this could be, if you have a fitness goal, you might want to lose weight or, just transform your body, get leaner, see your abs or whatever it might be. Okay. But when you get into that, if your answer is something like, well, let's see this, I feel like this and it's holding me back from working out, or, I don't have time to eat right, so it's holding me back from eating healthier. I would invite you to go a bit deeper than that, right? Remember, when we look at the 6 selves, identify the self. Is it self-doubt? Is it self-criticism, self-judgment, self-esteem, self-confidence, or self-worth? Right? Really look at that, because until you dig deep enough and really get to the core of the issue, right, things really won't change much. They might change a little bit on the surface, but you're really not going to really get what I call transformation, right? And that's not change, right? We can get a little bit of change happening, and change is kind of like, little something might happen, or it might be temporary, right? I make a change, but then I go back, or, I make this kind of change, but it doesn't really impact me or have that kind of, that impact on my life that I want it to have. It's not really propelling me forward to something I really want to do or who I want to be or the life I want to live, right? We're looking for transformation, which is very, very deep and very meaningful and permanent, right? It's change that lasts and it goes really, really deep. So I challenge you to, make sure that you're getting into that and doing the work in there, not avoiding and repressing things because maybe they bring up some emotional pain that's a lot to handle, right? But, if we avoid and we deny and we repress those things, we ignore them and act like they're not there, they tend to come back. They will not go away. They only become stronger, and they will start to show up in certain ways that can become problematic down the road, or they could become destructive, self-destructive. They could become dangerous, right? They could become really, serious emotional type issues too if we ignore them, repress them. So again, I'm inviting you and challenging you to go deep into that and really identify that, and to really identify how it's holding you back, right? What is this whole outcome from the recipe? What is the outcome that you've identified? What is it keeping you from doing? Who is it keeping you from being? Is there a certain kind of way that you want to be, a person you most want to be in life, but it's holding you back? Or is there something in your life that you want, but you're feeling like something that part of you is holding you back from? That's the stuff you want to get into. So once you get into that, you've identified the struggle, you've identified what it is, how it's holding you back. What are you not doing, being, or having in your life because of this outcome, because of this thing that this recipe is causing? And that's all linked into the part of yourself that's holding you back. Once you have that, then, you might be going, okay, well, guess what? I've got it. I went through all 3 steps of the process here and I got it. Now what do I do about it, right? And this is where it's very simple. So what I'm going to share with you, how to deal with this, like what do I do with this? How do I get rid of the thing that's holding me back? How do I break free from any of the 6 selves that are holding me back? What do I do? I'm going to share that with you, but it's not going to be what you think. Because this is where a lot of like the gurus and the experts out there will tell you all of the things that you need to do to get rid of it. All the things you need to do. Now, what I'm going to tell you is that you don't need to do anything. You don't need to do anything to get rid of it. Okay? Now that's going to sound a little airy-fairy, and what I promised you earlier was that this show is 100% airy-fairy pixel dust free, and I mean it. So this is not some airy-fairy philosophical concept of, just be okay with everything and it'll all work out, or right? Don't worry about doing, just focus on being. I'm not going there. And I'm not telling you you're just going to magically manifest what you want out of thin air. I'm not going there either. So just hear me out. So what I'm suggesting is that you don't need to do anything other than observe what's happening. Just be aware. Again, this goes into awareness because, as I've said before, awareness is the foundation for this whole thing. Without awareness, you can't get through any of this stuff. But remember, awareness creates choice. When we have awareness, we have choice. When we have choice, we have freedom. And when we have freedom, we have happiness. And that's when we break free from any of the 6 selves. Happiness will help us do that, right? Happiness will help us do that, but there's a process to getting there. There's kind of like requirements that we need to have met. It's our own needs that need to be met in a certain way in order to experience that happiness. And when we really have that happiness, we're not going to be blocked and held back by ourselves, any of them, okay? So what I'm talking about observing is you, now that you have awareness, you can observe when the self or any of the selves are doing their thing, right? Where they hold you back. Because now you become aware of the thoughts, you become aware of the patterns that go on, that trigger the whole recipe, right? That set it all in motion. So when you have that level of awareness and you've identified the recipe and all that, you're really aware of what's going on. And it changes things, because when you are aware of it, you can catch yourself. But all you do is you observe it. So you really try to tune into when you're thinking the thoughts, when you are experiencing the feelings, and you're not trying to change any of it. You're not trying to stop it from happening. You're not trying to label it as good, bad, right, wrong. Oh my God, I need to stop doing this. I need to think positive. None of it. I told you, you don't need to do anything. You're just observing that, oh shit, you know what? Here I go. This is where I'm going into my low self-esteem again. This is it. I'm catching myself. I can feel it. I sense the emotion that I'm feeling right now. There's the thoughts that I'm thinking of myself and all the things that are going on, and you catch it. Now, you might catch yourself as you're doing it, or you might go through the whole process and get to the end of the recipe and the outcome, and it's already done, and then you catch it after. That's okay. Right? There's no rule for when it has to happen. Just do your best to observe, okay? And if you have to, a good idea when you start out is to journal it. Write it down somewhere so that at the end of the day, you can look back at it and just keep a written record of it. You won't have to do that forever, but it'll really help you, to really develop your awareness. And awareness is everything here, okay? So you just observe when you're either in that pattern, when it's starting, when you feel it coming up, when you notice it, or even after, right? That's what you're trying to do, is just to observe. So here's the thing. Why am I only suggesting that you observe it? Why am I not giving you a to-do list? Here's why. When you observe yourself and you start catching this, you start noticing it, the better you get at doing that, what's going to happen is you're becoming more aware. And so, as I've talked about before, when you have awareness, you have choice. So what happens before is that you were going through this, you're going through it now, this whole process, okay? You're going through the thoughts, you're going through the language, you're going through the feelings, you're going through the patterns, okay? You're going through the recipe, the trigger, the event, and then the outcome of that event. You're going through everything that's holding you back, but you're doing it unconsciously. It's happening automatically because it's been so hardwired as a habit. Remember, I talked about the brain wiring in habits, because it's been done over and over and over so many times that your brain has gotten really good at developing the whole habit, and you can go from A to Z through that whole process like that. And you're doing it without even realizing that it's happening, right? So you're doing this unconsciously. And so what happens when we don't have awareness is we have no choice but to react to what's going on. This is happening, I'm feeling depressed, or I'm anxious, or I'm upset, or whatever's going on, and we just react to that because it seems like we have no control over it. When we don't have any control, we have no choice in how to behave. We have no choice in what we do. So we just react, okay? Reaction is, it just happens without any conscious thought or any choice. Now, what happens now, though, is now that you become aware of what's going on, and you can observe yourself, and you watch yourself, and you're catching yourself, and you're seeing all this stuff happen, what happens now is that you have choice. You know what? There I go into my low self-esteem right there. There I go. I'm seeing it happen. So I don't have to stop it. I don't have to repress it or anything, because when you're aware of what's going on, you will not be able to do anything that would harm you. You're not able to do anything that will, in some way, how do I want to say it? Harm is kind of a strong word, because it doesn't mean physically harming, but anything that is like detrimental to yourself, anything that would be in any way, how I can't even come up with the damn word right now, but I hope you know what I'm saying. You can't do anything that would really be detrimental or that doesn't serve you well. If it's something that's negative, right? That's putting you in a negative state, something that's bringing you down, something that is not resourceful and not serving you. If you are aware, you won't be able to do it because you're aware. Remember, awareness creates choice. So when you're aware, you start to observe what's happening, you start to catch it, and then when you catch it, you can change it. And you won't have to try to do anything. You're just naturally going to see what's going on, and you're going to realize that that's not, I see that happening, and when that happens, this is the outcome, and I don't want to feel that way, or I don't want to be that way, and you'll naturally start to choose other options. You won't have to try to force it. It will just happen. And part of that is because when you're doing the thing unconsciously, remember, your brain is just running it, this whole process, all these 3 steps I talked about, it's just running this whole thing automatically from the beginning to the end. And it's a pattern. It's a pattern that it could go from point A to point B on its own without you consciously thinking about anything. But when you're aware and you're observing things and you're making, different choices and you're seeing this happen, you're interrupting that pattern. It's no longer able to run from point A to point B the way it normally does, because now you're watching it and you're standing in the way and you're going, wait a minute, I see this. And that changes the pattern. Because the way the patterns always run, it's run without you being aware of it. So you've had no choice in the matter. But now you do. Now you see it. Now you notice it. You interrupt the pattern. And when you interrupt the pattern, it changes the outcome. Right? If you interrupt the pattern, it changes the outcome. And so, that's the whole thing. You get a different outcome now. And you didn't have to try to stop it. You don't have to, you don't label it as good or bad or right or wrong or anything. You don't have to ignore it. You don't have to deny it. You don't try to repress it or any of that stuff, right? It's just observing and being aware. Whew! So that was a lot. That was a ton of information right there. And come on, if you are still watching, share this. Share this. Click the like button. Better yet, click the heart button. Leave me a comment and let me know what you got from this. If this connected with you, and if you're watching this long, this is connecting with you. You're getting something from this. I'd love to know how. What this has meant to you, what you got, what insights has this brought up for you? What's your biggest takeaway? I've said this before and I'll say it again. This show is not for the languishing lurkers who just lurk in the background, languishing real silently, devoid of any life whatsoever. This is not like for people who are just watching because they're bored and need some entertainment to get through their day, and then they don't take anything of what I have shared, and they don't use it, and they don't do anything to make their lives any better. This is not the show for those people, okay? If you're watching this far, I'm banking that that's not you. You are not the languishing lurker who's doing that stuff. You are somebody who is engaged in the process of your own success, meaning you're going to take this and you're going to work on this and you're going to start to use this in your life immediately. You are an action taker. You are focused on doing, being, and having what it is that you want in your life. You are focused on serving the purpose that you know in your heart you were put here to serve. There is a reason why you're here, and you're willing to roll up your sleeves and engage in that process to make that purpose happen, to live that purpose. That's you, right? And that's who this show is for. I want a community of people who are engaged in that process to make their dreams in life happen. That's what I want. So if that's you, do me a favor, start that process by sharing this video. Share this with anybody. Share this on your timeline. Share this with those people who you know need this information. Those people who are struggling with their 6 selves or any of those 6 selves. And that way, this can get out and help those people who really need it most. All right, so I am done for today. This is episode 9, wrapping up. Episode number 10 will be coming at you Friday. Topic still to be announced, so stay tuned. And I want you to spread the word as well. So after you share this video, share it right now. And then I want you to go ahead and spread the word about where these episodes air. So it's right here on Facebook on my page, Kevin Yates Live. That is the place to be. So go to that page, click like, and that way you'll be notified as soon as I air another episode. So all the future episodes, you will be notified. You can also go to my website, kevinryates.net. Still working on some things on there, but it's up and running. So if you do miss any episodes, you can watch the episodes over there. Or, again, you can watch them on the Facebook page, Kevin Yates Live, because all of the episodes are up there as well. All right? So, hope you got a lot from this. Again, click the share button, show some love on this video, and I want to wish you all the best. So until next time, have a great day, and I'll be talking to you Friday. See you then.